leave her. For we were near sunk in Catazar Bay, and now it's time for us to leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Aye, the tide still flows and the wind still blows, but it's time for us to leave her. 'Twas a summer day, we set our sails. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. With the freeborn storm we could not fail. Now it's time for us to leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Aye, the tide still flows and the wind still blows, and it's time for us to leave her. Near 200 ships set out that day. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. And they turned their might towards Catazar Bay, and it's time for us to leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Aye, the tide still flows and the wind still blows, and it's time for us to leave her. Was a magic fog upon the sea. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. It obscured both friend and enemy. Now it's time for us to leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Aye, the tide still flows and the wind still blows, and it's time for us to leave her. And the Grendel came with the rising sun. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. They outnumbered us near 3 to 1, and it's time for us to leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Aye, the tide still flows and the wind still blows, and it's time for us to leave her. So with fire and sword we forged ahead. Leave her, Johnny, leave her, leaving...
There we go. Hello, chat. Now you can hear me. I did a thing, and it's messed with everything. There we go. Look at that resizing on the spot. That's not difficult. That's not difficult at all. So Nick's working tonight, so that's fine. Funnily enough, I've had a lot of people message me to say that they can't watch tonight, but they've sent me questions.
Brilliant.
So I think this is. I'm looking forward to this. So yeah, now we can. Thank you, Digby. I hope you're good, mate. Good morning. Yeah. Unfortunately, I am here. Excellent stuff. Set an alarm so I'm not late for once. Wonderful. So, where to start? So, this is a run of things. So, first of all, I want to say thank you to Claire, because Claire has arranged loads of stuff. Just popping in to say you're super and I appreciate you. Thank you, Digby. You know I love you, and we all need a Matt as well as a Helen. And that we'll have to have a catch up at some point, buddy. Make plans. Can't watch tonight sounds like a poor excuse. Yes, very much so. So yeah, so thank you to Claire, because she's put a lot of effort into getting people together to come on stream, have a chat about stuff, because I'm very interested in getting out all the work that goes on over the hedge, basically, for people who play, because a lot of people turn up, it's there, it's done, everything's set up, they play the game and then they leave and they don't think about anything else. So for me, I really want to give out this is the hard work that people do. So if people watched last week, we had I think it was Beth and Rowan on talking about NPCs and all of this sort of stuff, and the amount of hard work they do, and the very small amount of people playing NPCs for the amount of players in the field as well, and the hard work that goes into it. So I really want to basically shine a light on all the superstars behind the field, because you all do so much work, and I think everybody needs some love behind that field. So this is what this is doing, and also a bit of, unfortunately, I'm going to use the E word for people in chat. It's a little bit educational. You're going to learn stuff here. I am sorry. Definitely need to do a 2 chaps about Empire. Yes, we do. Hi, Jazz. How you doing? So this is what we're going to do. I did have some news, but I've completely forgotten it. So this is good. But we all know who I am. So if we start with Erin up on the top there, if anyone wants to introduce themselves, and then we'll do Jon afterwards.
Hi, I'm Erin. I write plot at Empire. I've been doing it since 2019. I played a little bit before that, and I was an NPC for a little bit in between. I write and run other games as well, but Empire is the first game that I wrote anything for.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and I'm Jon. I'm technically head of plot at Empire. We can get into what that actually means. I'm always extremely self-effacing about it. I can't resist that. It's just part of who I am. I started playing at Empire through NPCing. I went straight to that, and after a few years of that, did a bit of plot writing. Took a break, as we all did, for a few years, and have been doing plot writing with more energy and commitment over the past 2 years. Since it's starting up again. And Erin and I are actually in the same house. That's a fun fact about us. Erin got the fun backdrop today. I am in the other room.
But where are you sat though?
Well, I'm sat on the floor. We might have already mentioned. There's no good backdrop up here. This is the best I could get. That painting's quite fun, but it's going to be a mystery. Maybe I'll tilt my screen later.
That's all good.
Got to plant some seeds for later.
Definitely. You can pan up it occasionally and show it. Make yourself look more ethereal. Plot is something that I think, because I've been doing these streams now for about 3 years. So when COVID hit and everyone went into lockdown, I started streaming and talking about Empire. Tried to keep people's keen up and get everyone going and recruit players and stuff. And I've done quite well with doing it. Plot is something that we talk about a lot. It's everything that we do. I think anytime anyone talks about anything to do with Empire, even down to costuming and stuff like that, it always comes round to plot and stuff that people are doing, stuff that's going on with. Plot is all encompassing. It is the be all or end all for a LARPer's life, it feels for me sometimes. How much pressure... I'm not even going through... I will say this to chat as well. I've got a list of questions that people who aren't watching tonight, but they have sent me questions to ask. So I think this shows the sort of pressure that people, or interest that people have in when it comes to plot as well. So what sort of pressure are you under as plot writers? Say not just from above, but do you put yourself under more pressure when it comes to delivering stuff for the players? Do the players put you under more pressure? Because let's face it, players are bastards. I mean, that's the simple... I'm allowed to say that. We are bastards sometimes. Most of the time. So how is the pressure for you when it comes to writing?
Either way. Ooh, same time.
Go ahead,
Jon.
Okay. Something I really think about a lot, and I try to emphasize people who are interested in writing plot at Empire. As a big part of kind of the role that I have is helping people kind of on board into doing it. Is that it's a whole different ball game from running other games. Like I run tabletop occasionally. Erin and I run a game for about a dozen people at a local board game cafe, and in those kinds of settings, you know everyone there, and you know what they like, you know what they don't like, you know how to avoid things. That's you know how to plan around those things people aren't going to enjoy, and kind of create the experience. And when you get to a game with as many players as Empire, although I think the threshold is even lower than the number that Empire hits, you kind of have to embrace a certain amount of chaos when you run a plot. You really can't be precious about how you want it to go. No. In a tabletop game with 4 players, you can think, well, I want to get everyone over here, and I'm going to make sure that they get there. Or I can just tell them that's the case. That's where the plot is if I want to. But I always view it as coming to an event and just throwing a bunch of stuff out onto the field, up into the air, and then seeing where it lands. And after the event, seeing what's come back and what's happened and what things have collided in different ways, and trying to think, okay, what comes next with that? So in a way, we are quite, I guess, protected almost from the opinions people have about our plots. If someone has a bad time on something, we're keen to, we're keen to have that feedback go to PD so that we can take it into account. But we don't see it. But the flip side of that is that when things go really well, sometimes you don't get that validation of someone coming up to you and saying, that was fantastic, because they've got no idea who you are. Like you say, we're on the other side of the hedge.
Yeah. Okay. That's quite interesting. How about yourself, Erin? What's your view?
I think building on what John said a bit, there's very much no pressure on the amount of plot that you run as well. So I'm a silly person and I run quite a lot of plot. But there are other people who perhaps more sensibly run less plot during an event. I think especially like when people are like starting out writing plot, they might write one encounter for a whole event and like spend the rest of the event NPCing or doing a different crew role. So the pressure is something that you can kind of manage. And if you need pressure to motivate yourself, then you can like heighten that. Whereas if you'd rather have a more relaxing experience, you can take it slowly and spend more time on like perfecting one encounter.
Yeah. Okay, that's quite interesting. I'm going to say I need to put out. I did this for the NPC stream as well, and I forgot to do it here, but I will do this. As everybody in chat knows, I have a very strict find out in play rule. That is very much being enforced this evening, especially for me, because there's plot going on in that field that Steve is very heavily involved in, that Erin wrote. I can't talk about it. How do you think I feel, everyone? But loving it, absolutely loving it. So I think that's the best feedback I can give there. The plot I am involved in, I am really enjoying. So put it this way, I danced with some people last event, so that was very much fun. It was actually hilarious. So okay, so what we'll do is I'll jump, because there's one question that I think is very, very prevalent with what you've said and with a lot of things here. So this is from Jamie from Twitter. He says, can't be there tonight, but I would love to know what challenges does the amazing growth in the player base pose for the plot team? Funny if that was going to be my first question as well. I just thought, I need to ask about the growth, and then Jamie's done it, so I'll give Jamie the credit. I will also say there's a link that's just popped up there as well. John makes puzzles and enigmas and stuff like that. So go follow that link and have a look at what he's done as well. That link's always going to be popping up. So yes, so it will be there. Show John a bit of love, a bit of support. It'll be great. Anyway, sorry, I'll stop interrupting now.
You gave us time to think. I think we are partially shielded from the growth of the player base, at least a little, because a lot of the really high level plot is written by the game team. So things that really echo across the field are, I mean, they might still be written by us, but less of them are written by us. So there is that, and that shields us a little bit. But I definitely think at least when I'm writing plot, and from chats we've had, I think also when John's writing plot, we have been thinking more about how can this plot hook in lots of people, which is like, it's a natural, it's something that's encouraged in plot anyway, is like, at a small scale LARP, you could spotlight one person and that would be a perfectly good story. But at Empire, because of its scale, you've got to think more about, okay, well, how can the encounter that I'm running cause game before it happens and after it happens? And how can it cause game that like ripples out across the field?
Yeah.
And so there's definitely been, at least on our end, I think a lot more thinking about that. Obviously, different plot writers will come to different conclusions about this and will approach it in different ways. But certainly when I think about the plots that I've been running, especially this year, I got very excited because I ran a plot that reached, I think, 2% of the player base, and that was like life goal achieved, you know?
That's cool. That's really cool. So when you do stuff, then you're literally thinking, right, it's your focus is on trying to get as many people involved in pieces of plot as you can. So I suppose in this sort of instant, so I was just going to say that you think that, I mean, 2% doesn't sound much, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still what, a couple of hundred players, isn't it? So that's phenomenal, really. Sorry, John.
Yeah, it's a term that gets knocked around a lot when we're writing stuff, especially talking to the game team about our ideas. Is the word we use was like leverage. The idea being that what's the minimum amount of work you can put in? That makes it kind of sound like laziness, but it's more about efficiency, right? We've got this very fun ratio of crew to players. What's a small thing you can do that's going to have the biggest effect? And the drum I bang is that it's much better if an NPC talks to one player for 10 minutes, and then 100 other players get some game out of that, even if they don't meet the NPC, than it is for one NPC to spend an hour talking to lots of people individually. Even if they have a really fun scene, that's something that we like to see, fun NPC interactions. Yeah. But at the end of the day, that knock-on effect is going to hit more people. And so often when we're talking about plot, I think what comes to mind is running around being like feeling like you're at the center of the action and holding the items that are powerful or whatever it is. And that still very much happens. But if you're hearing a story about that and you're having an opinion about it, to us that is engaging with plot, kind of in a different way. But yeah.
Yeah, I think plot is what the individual makes of it. This is why the conversations of you get the personal plot, you've got national plot, you've got group plot, individual, you've got ball gowning, you've got all of this sort of plot that goes on in the field. And thank you for subbing, Red. Sorry, I will get distracted like that if anyone does anything like that. I do apologise. Because I find, I was funny enough, I was having a chat with Nick. He's in the Crimson Reapers in the league. We were talking about this, and where me and Nick are very confident, we're very out there, very bolshy people. So if something's going on, we have no issues with walking over to a large group of people and going, what's this? And then getting into the plot that way. But there's a lot of people who are socially anxious, more timid, who will see something going on and just stand there and then turn around and walk off because they can't do it. So for us, for me specifically, when people say, I can't get into plot, I always say, right, can you do this? It's like, no. So, okay, right, there are definitely ways of you getting involved in plot. Do you know people who can do that? It's like, no. Okay, right. There are definitely still ways of you getting involved in plot. And it's just finding other people in a similar boat, because I love to say that the reason I get so much plot is I enjoy listening. Not here, I love to talk my ass off when I'm on stream, but when I'm in the field, I love to sit there, and I'll sit there with a coffee, with a beer, something like that, and I'll just listen into so many conversations, and you pick up so much that's going on in that field. So I think one of the best ways I've just been able to describe it to people is so whereas I'm a Calavasi in Wintermark, the Calavasi do their Vision Quest thing. The last one that we had there was nothing there really to take out of it. Everybody came out of it feeling a bit deflated and things, which sucked. For me, it sucked because I love those things. They're so atmospheric. There was loads of hornets. That was a problem, but there's nothing you can do. It was just so. But I very much wanted to build on that thing that someone had written. The NPCs were there taking time out to do for people. So yeah, people may come out of it feeling flat and deflated, but it doesn't stop me because I just think, right, they've talked about stuff. Let's work on that then. Let's take the most tenuous of links here and run with it. It's now being picked up by 3 groups, I believe, in Wintermark. And I have no idea how this happened. I was talking out my arse and they're running with it. But I have said to people, let's give the people who are newer to Anvil stuff to do. Let's get them involved in it. And everyone's doing it. So if you're brand new to Anvil last event and you're involved in stuff in Wintermark, I'm sorry. But you're going to love it. So I think that leads on to when you hear about these sorts of things happening in the field and people pulling plot out of their arse, basically, to get stuff to be done, do you hear about that? Do you get that fed back to you? Like someone just says, oh, this is what they're looking at in the field. So or if people email in to PD about it, just say, I'm looking at this, this and this. Do they then contact you? And you go, there's no plot here. Oh, but we could do something with that, though. Do you ever get that sort of thing?
It definitely happens sometimes. I'd say like once or twice an event, I'll get a call and go down to Gods because they're confused about a query. And I guess this is a reflection of how the game's grown, both in terms of players and the amount of plot that we're managing to get out. If someone can say, yeah, I met a Winter Herald last night and they gave me this. And I'll look at it and I'll think, this doesn't sound familiar, but it's entirely possible there is a plot that I've just forgotten about where some Winter Heralds are giving this out. But sitting down with it and reflecting on it, it's like, this is something that a player has done, which is really exciting. But if there's that, I think a lot about expectation management in like all game design, and like I suppose helping someone navigate the fact that they thought they'd got something from PD, but actually it was from another player. But I don't think that there's much of a difference there, as long as that you've got something to run around and have fun with, because most plot, in fact, it's pretty much a condition for if you're pitching an Empire plot. If you've got an outcome that is predetermined that you want the players to get to, it probably won't get approved. It's got to be that player agency is absolutely key, not least because it's very hard to communicate. You have to do this in a way that's not really objective and sucks all the fun out of it in that chaotic Fest LARP context.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I've lost my train of thought there. I've always been pulled in 3 different ways when I'm thinking.
Welcome to my world. I do exactly the same.
But yes, definitely. Like there's a lot going on where people are struggling, and we're struggling to pick apart what's plot, because there's plots from 8-9 years ago that set a precedent that we don't remember anymore, or that we don't want to keep. And navigating, like, do we keep this thing from years ago, or do we try and take it in a different direction? Largely trying to stick to it, because if a commitment's been made, even if it only gets called for years later, it's really annoying if that doesn't come through. But sometimes it's just there's a element. I think most people who are writing plot in the first year or 2 of Empire aren't writing plot anymore, because it's been years. People interests change, they go off and do different things. So there are some cases where we have to say the person who wrote that isn't here, and we don't know what their design was, and we can't really pass a judgment on it because it's been ages. So yeah, it's a really, and this is I maybe it's sounding like it tires me, but it's one of the most fun things in a stressful way about Empire is just that how unique Fest LARP is, and all those different directions that plot can come from.
It's amazing that you say that, because my first character in Navarre was a guy called Cernanos. He had a lot of firsts under his belt. I was the first character to replace a general who was really, really bad. And I was also the first general to be executed, but in the greatest way imaginable. The magistrate literally told me, you don't come back from the battle. I was just like, that's wonderful. That's great. There was a lot of OC crap involved, and basically just said, yeah, I'm not going to execute you here because of OC shenanigans. So he just went, don't come back from the battle. And it was wonderful. I had a great time. But that character was involved in some plot. And funnily enough, a couple of years ago, I emailed in to ask about it, and it got fed all the way up to the top. And they just said, yeah, that person's no longer here. That plot has been officially just shelved. And it was wonderful plot. I've been really hoping to like catch wind of it, but knowing that it's been officially shelved means that I can stop looking for it now. But it was so good. But it's nice to hear that there's a list. I imagine like a long list somewhere of all of this plot that you've got. And then someone asks about that plot. You can look at it. It's like dusting off the old dusty tome. And then just looking at it and going, no, that's gone. That's long gone. Yeah, we can't read this writing anymore. No one speaks this language. And stuff. So I have a tendency to do this. There's been loads of questions. And Digby has written a really long one. How does the plot team incorporate player-driven plot, facilitate it being taken wider? I run a farmers union, and it's quite successful now, but it feels really hard to get a wider perspective on what you're putting out there. So, Digby, to his credit, hasn't been playing very long. It's been just over a year now, year and a half, maybe, almost 2 years. He hit the ground running. And this farmers union, it caused so many issues across the field. The Dunnings in Wintermark especially, the Marchers especially. It's wonderful. The chaos, the absolute chaos it caused. It was great. So, right, I'll stop talking now. I can see you both thinking. So I can, yeah. So yeah.
I think the sad side of the answer, I think, is that because a lot of us writing plot are really busy in like the monster tents, like John said, he barely leaves.
Yeah.
Some of us get out more often than that. We don't always know what players are doing. There are definitely areas of the field where my best idea of what's happening comes from things I have read that NPCs have written. So sometimes we just don't know what's going on out on the field because some of us don't get to go out very often. Some of us do NPC or like do ref, which helps. But I think as well, like for I can definitely think of characters with big shenanigans going on that I know about because they've talked to my NPCs about them.
Yeah.
And I think any player is always very open to like canvassing at an NPC, especially like if you were running a farmers union. If you ran into a bunch of farming NPCs, I imagine you would quite naturally end up chatting to them about it. That would naturally end up in a debrief, and it may or may not get picked up on depending on what kind of makes sense. But when a player is talking to an NPC, it shouldn't feel like the NPC is just sort of regurgitating a backstory for the player. It should be a two-way conversation.
Yeah.
And plot in that way is very two-way, like we were saying earlier, is very much like players can take things and roll with them, and then a plot writer can be like, that's amazing, I'm going to escalate it. It's sadly probably partially luck because you need to find something that makes, you need to connect dots and draw lines. But that's what Empire is about, really, isn't it? It's about finding people and putting them in touch with each other. And that works whether the character is a player character or a non-player character.
So I suppose it's having a think about what you can do to affect the game, on a sort of like a level to make an NPC, a ref or someone notice it, to do that. So because I don't mind talking to, I don't know if Digby will mind me. Digby, you'll have to tell me, mate, if you don't want me talking about it. Honestly, I'm not sure what more I can do beyond nailing it to the Senate door.
Well, what I would add there for sure is Senate is not like me and John's jurisdiction. I've got no clue what happens in Senate. Like Senate is really important. I'm not saying that it's not important, but there's lots of different arms of plot at Empire. And so like the arm of plot which runs Senate is quite separate to the arm of plot that I write. And then like, you know, it's like an octopus. It's got so much going on. So I'm not saying don't nail your stuff to the door of Senate. That sounds like a great idea, but that's probably not something that me or John would be able to talk about like we would probably be less educated on it than you.
Yeah, because I know that you've obviously got military plot, magical plot, resource plot, and everything is all branched and spread quite thin, and everyone's involved in their own certain areas. So something that a plotopus, yes, well done, Pete. That's amazing. A plotopus, or a ploctopus. Yeah, I prefer plotopus. Because something that I suggested was doing like the resource route, getting something built that is for this specifically. So I've just had the bone hives built in Wintermark, and I know that bone hives get targeted, and I know there are skirmishes that can and probably will happen where people have to go out and defend them, otherwise they lose their abilities. But that can happen to anything like that across the board. So I've suggested that when it comes to the Farmers Union, I can't remember what the name of it is. Chat will have to remind me. But there is something that you can get built that's literally, this is the headquarters of the Farmers Union. And it's literally just that, a building like that. Get that built. Not a sinecure. If only Ryan was here. He's in my hall. He's got an eidetic memory. He remembers everything, so he'll know. He knows the one I mean. That's good. But so I've suggested doing something like that. Do you get made aware of things like that? So it's like something big has been made, and it's this. You're involved in something like that. It could draw your attention, perhaps.
I think it depends on the writer. I think most of us are like probably a lot of players in that once the servers come back online after an event, we're on the wiki, we're refreshing the statements of principle page, we're seeing what Conclave got up to, we're looking at all of that stuff. It's like you read the morning news, because that's when we really start to download like what happened at the events, or get a different perspective on what happened at the events. And part of the reason I try to read through all of those is to think, is this going to spark any plot ideas? But different writers have different goals and different like agendas. But when I'm writing a plot, what I want to do is create like an atmosphere and an energy on the field or through the Sentinel Gate. So often that means just interesting things going on, which aren't too closely connected to any very specific part of the setting. Because for me, if I'm thinking about when I talked about leverage, the more particular you make it to a particular bit of the world, the more likely it is that other people will say, "Well, I don't know what that is, so I'm gonna go off and do something else and miss out on something." But you're right that once something is on the wiki, I think it gives it a certain je ne sais quoi. When we've got like there's a set number of skirmishes that try to be run at every event. I shouldn't talk too much about that because it's not really my area of expertise, but we're trying to cram as much opportunities to go through the Sentinel Gate and have a kickabout with LARP weapons as we can. And so sometimes the starting point for that is, there's this thing that someone's built, and we can imagine that someone would attack there, and then there's some Druge in a place, and you've got a fight on your hands. And there are good, we generally, when I'm trying to write a skirmish, I don't do it very often, but when I do, I'm not trying to write Druge here, players here, fight, end. There's going to be some kind of tactical element, some kind of element of interest, and those little things on the wiki can be the thing that sparks, so maybe they're defending these bone hives, or this particular building, or there are some innocent civil servants here who are just trying to administrate this part of the Empire's system, or something like that. But I suppose something that I think we were talking before this, we were on to emphasize is that like the platypus has many, sort of like platypus has many branches. The platypus has many bills, and at least what I'm always trying to do is like, you're going to be people if you're wandering around Anvil and something really weird happens that gives you something to run around with for a while and a story to tell later. And if I can do that for 100 people or more than that, ideally, that's what gets me going home, like with that little warm glow that brings me back.
One example of plot writer trawling the wiki and accidentally falling exactly into the player's laps. I didn't know this, but a while ago, some players built, and someone will know the name of this, I've forgotten the name of it, like a exchange necromantia college for Axu students to come and study in the Empire. And apparently the player who made that deliberately built it very close to Anvil because they thought it would be funny if Axu gap year students came for like a pub crawl around Anvil. And I had no idea about any of that, of course, but I found it on the wiki and was like, that's really funny. Imagine if a bunch of Axu students went on a pub crawl around Anvil. So sometimes you can make something and a plot writer will accidentally write exactly the plot that you thought would be funny happened. Oops.
That's cool. So, is it he did mention it. Begins with an S. A sodality, I think that's what it's called.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Sounds like a question for a civil servant, which I am.
We are so not.
None of us.
Yeah, people mention the wiki to me and I hide behind the sofa, I'm afraid. Everything I learn more by talking to people about stuff. So, and there's some very knowledgeable people out there. So I think, what I've said to Digby is literally make something like that. And then I say it's going to be out there. I say it has to go through Senate and all of that. Unfortunately, we mentioned Conclave and that triggered everyone. So, lots of angry people in chat.
I don't understand Conclave. I avoid it in all ways. I know some people absolutely adore it, but I do not understand it.
I hate Conclave so much. So much. They're talking farmers' unions. Yeah, the farmers' union became a very, very big thing, and it still is, and it keeps on growing. He says it's sort of stopped, but it hasn't. It is always growing, and there's always a lot of interest in it. So he has done phenomenally well in stuff like that. So I think any player who comes along and gets something off the ground like that, and in 2 years of playing, because of all of this sort of stuff, he's been pulled aside by Prospero. He's had loads of stuff going on, and it's all because of this sort of stuff. So he's done really, really well. He's just greedy. No, he's done well. He has done very, very well. So, right, let's get back to all these tangents. So Nick has asked, are you happy with the amount of plot delivered at Empire events?
Ooh.
It's tricky, right? So another thing that I often emphasize to people who are interested in running plot is it's a lot of creative work that you do in between events, and it's having exciting ideas and it's fleshing them out, but it's also coming to the event and delivering it, making sure we've got, you talk to the NPC crew, you know that they're amazing, got fabulous people doing plot production, refs, skirmish team. They're all extremely capable and can pull off amazing things, but often the plot writer needs to just hold the center and answer those questions that they haven't anticipated, and make sure that everyone is in the right place at the right time. Because all of the departments are kind of focusing on one bit of the production line. Yeah. So I always, between events or after events, I'm like, I want to run more next event. I'm really excited to have all of these ideas and flesh them out completely. But all of us have to sit down really carefully and think what's an amount of plot that we can deliver to a good quality. We're definitely we want to get a high level of quantity, but I'd much rather that every plot writer wrote one perfectly executed plot than 20 which are all kind of a bit rough around the edges.
Yeah.
and are going to lead to people players getting confused in the field, things getting bogged down and frustration. So there's always that drive to do more, because it's so every single plot is always, it's a baby, it's very special, and you want to bring more and more out and put more and more out. But for me, at least, like I've had to, there've been points where I've had like a bad event because I set out to run so much, and things I was spinning so many plates that for future events I had to go, right, let's think a lot more carefully about how I'm spending my efforts here. Because burnout is a present threat on any kind of creative effort.
Oh yeah, very very much so. I think it's the case of quality over quantity at the end of it, isn't it? I think it rings true for anyone who plays tabletop games as well. You don't want to throw something out there that your players are going to get bored of, or they just want to ignore it. So I mean, I always go back to a tabletop, a D&D game. My one and only time playing D&D, and they wanted the GM wanted us to play this specific bit of plot. None of us wanted to, so it's like, yeah, this is what's going on over here. So it's like, yeah, that's great. We're going to go to this village though, and we'd literally walk away. And they got to the point of where he got so angry, he just like, yeah, game's over. I don't want to run anymore. And that was it. It was just like, it's a two-way street. It's like, we don't want to do that sort of stuff. We wanted to do this as well. So you take that plot and alter it. So it's for that. No, wasn't interested. So I suppose there's a lot of that goes on as well. But it's like that with any plot. Do you ever get out in? I mean, obviously not you, John, because you live in the monster tent. But Erin, you said you mentioned that you went out and NPC'd before. Do you get to do a lot of NPCing yourself now? So you write a bit of plot and you think, oh, I want to see how that's delivered, so I'm going to I'm going to be this NPC.
John's smiling because he knows I have strong opinions on this. I don't like NPCing my own plots. I do NPC my own plots if an NPC has to deliver something like very complicated or a little bit like this could go wrong easily. But I don't like to NPC my own plots because I think it puts a lot of pressure on anyone else who's NPCing with you. And I think the NPC crew are often better at NPCing than I am because they do it all weekend. Whereas I've been like trapped in a tent running around in circles worrying about props, and then it's hard to get yourself out of that mindset. I have started reffing recently and I really enjoy that. You get like a completely different view of the game, and I would recommend it to anyone who's interested in crewing, to be honest. I think reffing is really underrated.
I think that's where I recognised you from. Did you do a night potion? At
Maybe?
E3 in Wintermark? And it
Yes!
That was me.
I did, yeah. Oh,
that was
excellent.
me. Yeah, I nearly killed all my haul. We did well.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was so good. I nearly killed all my haul, and then had to get dragged over to Highguard for an exorcism. It was wonderful. Typical Saturday.
But this is why reffing is great. Like, getting to go over and do something like that is really fun, and especially when it's it's really spur of the moment. You don't know what someone's going to be asking of you until you get there, and sometimes it's just completely wild. Yeah,
because I think the instructions on that potion were literally, it's replaced a memory. And that was it. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I've seen this guy who's murdered someone and he knows this person's killed them. Yeah, I'm going to want revenge. That's what I played out, and I nearly killed all my haul. It was great. Excellent. It was a lot of fun. No, I didn't kill Dan, but I literally had our artisan. He was on his knees, and I had a sword on the back of his neck, and I was doing the 5 seconds roleplay to execute him. I got down to 1 second, and then someone came and hit me, so that interrupted the roleplay. So 1 second later, and he would have been, you would have been gone. So, your poor hallmates. No, anyone who roleplays with me gets used to being assaulted every now and again. It's part and parcel, I'm afraid. I Erin has been an excellent ref for accessibility needs in Wintermark and been at our hall a couple of times. Oh, it's lovely. Who's that?
Thank you.
Oh, that's right. Ryan, the man with the memory has arrived. Yes. So yeah, you have been wonderful. I think we gave you drinks as well. I seem to remember it was really hot. So yeah, we do say this: if you're a ref or crew and you're in our area at the hall in the pub, then yeah, we will give you plenty of fluids. Yeah. So that's wonderful. There's so many questions. So many questions. Right.
Could I actually use what you just said as a quick
go for it.
Bouncing off point for something that we really wanted to get across.
Go for it.
And it might be that everyone already knows this, so I'll try and be brief. But
No.
Mentioning access requests around reffing, if you're ever invited or find yourself going through the Sentinel Gate for something, or going to, we call them encounter tents, they're these tents that live off the other side of the hedge where our amazing team puts together these amazing sets that kind of transport you somewhere else for a little bit. If you're going into one of those or you're going through the Sentinel Gates, you're leaving Anvil for anything, that encounter should have some pretty thorough access notes written for it. So if you've got ability needs, worries about smoke, phobias, and other things like that, anyone with a tablet or with a radio should be able to get you that information pretty quickly. And we try to make that detail thorough, but also if there's a very particular thing that you don't think, we have our phobia section where we set out the things that we expect to come up. But if there's something very specific, getting to someone with a radio, they should be able to make contact with the person who's planning that encounter, who can say that's going to be present or that won't be present, and potentially even if that'll be an issue for I'll just take it out. It depends on the encounter. If you're arachnophobic and you want to go meet a Halligan, you probably don't want. It's probably going to be difficult to make something work there.
Yeah.
But that's really kind of that's written above the door that's what you're getting yourself in for. But yeah, if you can get to a radio or a tablet, that information is available for any plot that's taking place off Anvil. Because I know it can be really daunting going through the gate, especially, and you can sort of forget to just have that check-in and make sure that you're going to be all right in what you're doing. Because it can be really immersive. Some of the tents they put together are I've NPC'd them and forgot, becomes more immersed in them than I've been at games that I've played. But yeah, and there's more information on the wiki about that access info and how it's broken down and things like that. I just wanted to use this platform to talk about that.
No, it's great. I think this was something that Claire said as well, wasn't it? Yeah, it's very much. I think this is one of the big things that PD do very well is accessibility, and not just for access to plots and stuff like that, but they look at the situation as a whole. So I'm aware of people who have been injured 3 days before an event. So they were meant to go on a full combat skirmish, and then instead of a full combat skirmish, it became a full diplomatic skirmish, and that's so that they could then, with their crutches, go on and still do the thing. So yeah, so I think when it comes to plots and doing things like that, PD do a very, very good job of it. They don't want to just cater to people who just want to go and have a bit of a scrap. It is all out there. I've been involved in diplomatic missions as a bodyguard, and I have been told by them, there's no fighting, nothing will happen, and that. So it's just be prepared to stand here for 20 minutes, basically. So there is stuff out there like that. It's always I think it would be great to see more, because I think Empire has grown so much now that the amount of people there who do need that extra accessibility, they do need that support, that help, and that has grown exponentially. So I think it'll be very good to see a lot more plot like that out there as well, focused on, well, I say not focused on, but I suppose geared towards those sorts of words are failing me, really failing me. I can't think, but you know what I mean. Just to get people who wouldn't normally be involved in skirmishes or things like that, get them involved. Basically, it'll be good to see stuff. It's good to see stuff like that going on. So absolutely. Yeah. So I yeah, the tip of the hat to you for well, not just for you, but for everyone who's involved, who rewrites stuff at the drop of a hat if it needs to, take stuff in, add stuff and stuff. So yeah, the creativity is phenomenal. It's a really, really good thing. That was an encounter. Oh, right, there's so much. What's the biggest surprise that you had this year in terms of reactions to a piece of plot, regardless if you're involved or not? It's a good one. You're smiling there, John. You can go first.
I'm trying to think.
I can fill for a bit.
I definitely know what my answer is. I definitely can't talk about it. The fact that I have said that means that if the player ever watches this, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And to everyone else, it's entirely meaningless.
That's brilliant. I think that's the good thing, though, isn't it? The plot is very... I don't like the word tailored, but it's there for people. And so if you're involved, they'll know something big that has happened this year. I mean, I can think of a few pieces of plot that are really big that's going on at the moment. That definitely can't talk about. But I suppose the biggest piece of plot that's happened my time at Empire would be Britta finding her body and stuff like that. And and walking... carrying that body back around Anvil. That was incredible to be involved in, and that plot went on for a very, very long time. Everybody arguing all over it, and yeah, it was great. So, have you got something, John?
I think so. It's not a perfect answer to the question, but I've been trying to make a habit of every event running a usually quite late at night conjunction for a big group of people, which is, we call it combat unlikely, because we can never say that another player is not going to attack someone else, but within the design of the encounter, there's no combat that's going to take place. And those never go the way I expect them to. And that's partially because I deliberately, like I've said, I present a problem and I have some ideas for a solution, but I brief the NPCs and I say, I trust you to make this a cool encounter, and I trust the players to make it a cool encounter. And there was... Can I talk about this? Yeah. So this was last year, so I'm moving the goalpost slightly. I think it was the first something like this I did, where it was in Wintermark, there was some ghosts of... it's November and I've forgotten all the nouns related to Empire. They were Frayed, who had died before talking to a Scop and getting their Scop name that they were really keen to do. They'd achieved something that they thought mended their Skyne, and they were, fell tragically short of getting that final validation of their Scop name. And so they were haunting this place. And so a lot of Scops and performers and musicians came along to chat to them. And all I knew was that there were some ghosts with a thing they wanted to get off their chests. And what I thought would happen would be that some players people would go off, they'd be a bit scared of the ghosts. The ghosts would say, here's what I did. And a Scop would go, you are now, I don't know, Sinistan Mammothbane. Congratulations. And then they'd all go home. And that would have been, they'd go and talk about that. But what happened, all of that played out, but really organically, the NPCs had all gone. And I thought, okay, I'm going to head back to Monster now. But the players stuck around for another 5, 10, 15 minutes, just gathering together and sharing those stories again. And really I'd written a sentence for the NPC.
Yeah.
The NPC had turned it into a little bit of dialogue. And a group of Scops and performers turned that dialogue that was mostly improvised off my little bits and bobs ramblings into these beautiful poems and stories that they did for each other, like lit by the fire late at night. And as I understand it, many went off and continued telling those and iterating on them further and further. And so seeing that again is the thing that warm thing that brings me back to writing stuff, is seeing the alchemy that comes once players get their hands on things. And I shouldn't be surprised, because LARPers are amazing. They can do amazing things together.
Yeah.
But seeing the shape that things end up taking is always like that. That 10-minute window makes all the hours of writing and thinking absolutely justified and worth it.
That's really lovely. That's really nice to hear. That I mean that I was aware of something ghost related that happened this year, and I thought it was that. But it's nice to hear that it wasn't that, because that was a massive overreaction by players. It was great to watch. But no, that's lovely. That's really nice to hear that something so little has created something that a lot of players ran with, and it's always nice when you get those sort of things. Because something I always say, it's always LARP is always about the stories. I don't care about the game.
Yeah.
I want to hear the stories. Just tell me your stories. That's what I want to hear. So it's like when I was in Copenhagen for the Epic Armory thing, loads of LARPers there. I streamed for like 10, 11 hours, me and Digby, and so many stories. I got to hear so many stories. That's all I want. That's all I want. So that sort of thing, players taking the smallest thing and then running with it. That's awesome. That's absolutely phenomenal to hear. I love it. So, Hun, could you do me a favour? Sorry, my wife is a mod. Could you piece together everything that Digby put in about the union and stuff? If only it was time-stamped, it's not. And put it all together into a notepad and then chuck it to me on Discord for me. 'Cause if you're okay after the stream, I'll read it out to you, because he's put there's a lot there, just to get a bit of feedback might do him some good, if that's all right. Obviously, if it's involved in current plot, then you can't say anything, but it might be.
It's fine. I'm honestly not sure if we are the people best placed to help, but I'm happy to listen and give some thoughts.
Yeah, I think that'd be absolutely perfect. My wife's just said, "Oh Christ." There's a lot.
Yeah, I'd always encourage writing emails into PD. The plot address is a good place for plot, and that means that you're going to get it's going to be read by the people who are definitely still going to be there in a few years. We have every intention of staying at Empire for as long as it's enjoyable. But
I just
think
think
old time.
I just think at the beginning of the Long Dark, it might just be nice to have a bit of a I mean, any feedback's good, or even if it is just use this email address and send that off here, and that. So, because I think a lot of the feedback that people get from PD is 9 times out of 10 it's positive, and it encourages you. So, but yeah, you could be unlucky and get that one time. Back to the Plotopus. Right. Scrolling down, looking for. I've got a list of questions. Let's go to the next one. What changes would you make if you could make any changes to how plots delivered or done?
More NPCs. That would be lovely. More of all crew departments. That would be lovely.
Yeah. How many people in your department are there then?
I'm going to let John answer that.
In terms of plot writers, I think there's maybe about 10, maybe more, maybe fewer. Some people write loads, some people write 1 or 2 things. NPCs, the numbers change quite a bit between events, like any attendance with anything. We've had events with 6. Those aren't usually the easiest events, but everyone who's there absolutely pitches in and makes it happen. And I think we've had up to 15 or 20. There's over the year, it might be that there's quite a lot of people, but by events, it really varies. There's about 3 people doing makeup, 3 to 5 people. This is wrong. These are all approximate numbers, but it's fewer people than you'd think, generally, making amazing things happen. And so if anyone has the appetite to come behind the scenes and pitch in with anything really, NPCing, making stuff, making makeup happen, making sets, reffing, it's well documented. What's out there and what's needed. But we would be very, very happy to have more people helping out on the other side of the hedge. I think it's a good time. It's a good little community.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've always said to anybody, if you're interested in doing it, then just ping an email. Ask, go for it. Don't just turn up on the day and say, I want to do this.
Would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because as Beth said last week, she was saying that about the numbers. It's like the lowest has been like around 6, and the most they had I think was 30 one time, and that was so there's a big difference there. So yeah, so if anyone is interested in doing it, because I think Digby's other half Esme, she's interested in doing it. So she's I can't remember the nation that who speaks Dutch, because she is Dutch, so she wanted to be involved.
Sarcophendels.
That's the one. So yeah, so she said, "Oh, I can speak." She is fluent in Dutch, so she wanted to do that. So let's see if she could lend a hand in that way. So, but yeah, I would encourage anyone, if you're interested, to ping an email in. So Nick has asked, why is so much plot targeted at individuals?
I don't think it is. I think it's easy to seed something to an individual. I think there's a difference between a plot being seeded to an individual and targeted to an individual.
Okay.
I don't really do either, though. At least I don't think I do.
Not that you can talk about.
Oh.
It's certainly that the most visible plot often names a particular person as a point of like interest, or someone with responsibility for it. We think that, you know, we're not, as we said, we're not generally running that kind of stuff, but I think part of the principle around it is that people with in-game responsibilities, they get given a lot to do, and a big part of that role is really is sharing it with other people and bringing people in, almost like, you know, if you take the throne as an example, the throne has an impossible, when there is one, amount of stuff to do, and it's all there for them to delegate, people who then delegate, and bring in more and more people into it. I think something that people might not have considered is that there are plots which I think go out and fly almost completely under the radar as plots. If a plot is that if there's a marcher who wants to express an opinion about something or make something happen, it's quite common for NPCs to come back saying, I think they thought we were players. And that's not, you know, a bad thing. It's almost kind of, you know, we want the world to feel real, and full of people with opinions who aren't just the ones who come to Anvil regularly. And one of my big, like, another drum that I bang about engaging with plot is that if someone you don't know comes up to you, it could be plot. You don't know, and as you know, engaging with them, taking an interest, listening, like you say, it's kind of a win-win. Whether they're a brand new player, an experienced player, or plots, you're going to get something out of that moment. But yeah, I think the concept is that giving responsibility for plot to individuals gets them moving things around. So don't be afraid to have a chat with your senator and tell them what you think about something, and offer services and things like that. You never really know how it's all gonna click together.
I suppose then, I mean, I think you get the flip side of that, then where you get some players will get a bit of plot come to them, and they'll gatekeep, essentially. They will keep everything to themselves, and they don't want it to go out there. So I know I have gone up to players and spoken to them in character at first, knowing that they are currently sat on like 4 letters or something, all for different things, and they're refusing to pass it on. And then I've gone and had a chat with them out of character as well, and just like, okay, what you're doing is really selfish. Okay, don't be this person. Pass it on. Get people involved. It's like your group has got 5 or 6 new players. Get one of them involved. Get someone involved. Do that. Please do that. Don't be a dickhead. That's the sort of conversations that you have. But I suppose, how do you deal with people who have got this piece of plot and they're immediately just sort of hiding it and sneaking back to their tent, and then it stays in that tent now? That is where that plot lies. How do you deal with players like that?
I'd usually hook it elsewhere again. So signs and portents is really handy for this, and Goose Whisper. So I'll often put in some visions relating to the really dodgy plots that I'm running to try and be like, look, there's a giant red exclamation mark over this area of the field where something really bad may be happening.
Yeah.
And I think there's lots of different ways of doing that. It doesn't have to be visions.
Cool.
I think visions can be very funny. And also you can then massively misinterpret that, which makes it even funnier. There are magical entities and mundane entities in the Empire that like to make it their business to like sniff out things like this. Like if you're keeping plot to yourself, it seems to me quite likely that your character isn't acting in a virtuous manner, because the virtues kind of reinforce good roleplay. And so then if I've as a writer picked up on this, I might be like, well, it just so happens there's a highborn chapter that has an opinion on that, or something like that. I think it's quite an organic lever of the game to encourage people to share plot, and to if a plot isn't being shared around, and therefore from a plot perspective that can make a plot seem dead, because if a player isn't actively talking about it or hooking people into it, as a plot writer we won't know that player's doing anything with it because we won't see anything happening. And so we'd then be like, okay, well, either it's dead and we should stop doing anything with it, or we should hook some fresh people into it. So I think it's mostly something that fixes itself one way or another, but there'll always be things that get missed, unfortunately.
Yeah. So this goes back to players are bastards. No, obviously I'm only joking. I think there's a lot of stuff out there that experienced players can help with, and people who have a hat essentially can also help with massively. I think that is a big thing. And I was sat with someone from Dawn in the Forge having a beer. They were literally involved in so much stuff, and I bought him a beer just to get him away from it, because I have no issues with telling people where to go in game. And I was sat there with him, and a herald came over who was looking for him. Literally said, I need to talk to you about this, and all this stuff. And he just turned around and said, actually, no, that stuff's boring. But there's a Dornish person there, and the person was brand new, it turned out. They had turned up a day late, so they'd been there Saturday morning. I think they'd been in game for 3 hours, hadn't met anyone, and then they had a herald sat in front of them, giving them all this exposition. It was great. It was so funny to watch, but they were really, really grateful, and they went off and they ran with it. And it ended up back with this guy like 4 hours later, but it gave him a lot of stuff to do, and it was so much fun to watch. Like his little eyes lit up. It was like Christmas Day, and I think that's just so cool. Not dead, I promise. Hello, Debbie. How you doing? How's the new house? I hope you're good. Good thing we all know a guy. Yeah, I was saying to the NPCs that a lot of NPCs that I meet end up dead. Heralds especially, I just kill them. I've had enough. So it became a running joke of they're going to put their thing up and a little tally of an NPC that bumped into Steve and then just got hacked down. So, but it's, yeah, I think you're never going to win when you write a piece of plot, are you, essentially? Because it's never going to go 100% the way you want it to. There's always going to be these certain little tangents that go off, or a player's going to do something really not what you're expecting, might be a bit dickish. But then again, it could also be, it could take it in such a direction that it's gone off in a way that you would never have thought of, and it gives you something fun to react to as well. I mean, I know that when I run tabletop games, that's the sort of stuff I love. It's like when players go, yeah, but what about this? It's like, yeah, my plot goes over there, we'll do that instead because that's more fun. And that's really, really good. So, I mean, that's the impression that I get from you two, especially, is that's what you enjoy from writing a lot more. So, do you have any? Can you talk about any examples of stuff where you've had to do that? Did you like how I was leading into a question? See,
yeah, we should have seen it coming.
It wasn't, but it's not bad for me. I'm getting so much better at this.
I think that I kind of have to spin this around and compliment the NPC team. A lot of the plots that I run are quite self-contained. And the goal for me is, I don't like being at an event thinking, right, I've got to finish this, do more with this plot that's been running for ages and ages, because that builds up like a sense of responsibility and something, and expectations that I have to like continuously exceed. So I'm often like, what's a scenario that can play out in an evening or in an event that's going to be fun?
Yeah.
And that means like trusting NPCs to take it and interpret it and like find that ending with the players. I ran a really wacky one where there were when the huge Imperial Spring enchantment happened, and we were told about that, and they said if you want to run, the game team said if you want to run plot with spring things happening, that would make a lot of sense. We're never kind of told run this and hit with a stick until it falls out. It's very free, but we're given those like jumping off points, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, right, let's get like 5 or 6 spring boggarts together, these little, the lowest of the low of the spring realm, who are basically pests and nuisances. Send them all out through different gates, completely scattered across the field. A few people will know how to like Pied Piper style lead them all to one place, and then get them all to leave. And so there was quite a lot of time with players spent running around trying to find each other, trying to find the boggarts, trying to lead them all into one place. But that final moment was very like, it was, I hadn't prepared for it. I didn't even know if we were going to get there. I thought maybe the NPCs might just wander around and no one would really notice or care. But very happily, people went, what's this weird thing? And chased it. And they came back saying, we just sort of chose to do this, and the players did this thing, and we joined in and we did a little dance, and then we all marched off the field. And it was like, yeah, great, perfect. That sounds ideal. I've actually forgot. I love weird little guys. They're like that's what I love running plots with weird little guys. So I've forgotten what the question was, but I'm very happy that I brought up that I ran this plot, and I hope it answered it.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. No, that was great. So you wrote the boggarts then?
I cut some boggarts, other people, but those spring boggarts for me. We all love. Oh, we don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big on boggarts.
Yeah, because we had a load of them around our camp last event. I got cursed by one, so which was really bad. I think it was. I don't mind talking about it because it was something that happened to me and then got dealt with. It was a curse of nothing holds any value, no material value to me anymore. Do you know what the worst thing was? Is I had 500 thrones in my bag, and someone in my hall went, "I'll give you a ring for it." So I was just like, "Yeah." And like the tears that I was holding back, I was like, "Oh my god!" It's like, no. It's like, please don't. The funny thing was that I was then heading off to meet some certain drug dealers in the forge as well afterwards. So yeah, we had to get that curse dealt with very, very quickly. It was great. It was so good. It was so good. So much fun. So Curtis has asked. This has been, people keep on poking this question. I can see it. I have 2 screens set up, so I've got the like chat that I've paused here, so I can go through the questions, and then there's like the chat that's up to date. So if there's any people who are being stupid, you can tell them off. So everyone keeps on poking at this question. So Curtis has asked: Is there a particular kind of feedback you and your department find especially helpful, or would like more of? Is there anything players could do to help beyond feedback? That's a good question.
I love positive feedback. I'm going to jump in immediately because we don't really get out very much. We have no idea if anyone enjoys our plots, especially after an event when players are frothing at each other, but we're not really in any of those, well, some of us aren't in any of those spaces really. It's quite easy to be like, did anybody actually engage with anything I wrote? So I think if you enjoy a plot encounter, writing in to say that you enjoy it, and also just sort of writing in to say what you did is really nice, because it's like, oh, that person enjoyed it and they did this wacky thing with it, and now I kind of have that story that I wouldn't have known. Equally, I have found that there isn't like a massive amount of negative feedback necessarily for individual encounters. So especially like hearing something like, I wanted to go on this encounter but I couldn't because X happened, is really, really helpful to know. Like I got some feedback, I think, an event or two ago, that one of my encounters clashed with another really big encounter. And so I've just been really careful about that since. And that, again, because we're not out in the field, we don't necessarily see that people are wanting to go on to encounters that happen at the same time, which is partially an aspect of the game, but also, especially say one encounter is like almost an entire nation, it's like, okay, I probably shouldn't write something that clashes with that. That's not good game design. So yeah, anything constructive, especially if it's to do with accessibility or getting on an encounter, is really handy. And also just anything that you got up to and enjoyed, or a funny story, makes our little hearts sing.
Well, I take one thing that I love to do, where I get a lot of new players come through. I love to do a before and after. So I will talk. I'll do a. I've done quite a lot of them where I've chatted to someone before an event, and they say this is what we hope to do. And then I talk to them afterwards, and I say, right, what did you do? And then they tell me this is what I have actually done, and they're very, very different things, incredibly different. But one of the best things about it is it's like back to the stories again, is that they always mention pieces of plot that they've got involved in. So do you ever pay attention to like the hots and nots that have gone out and on the cesspit that is Facebook? I hate Facebook so much.
I'm searching key phrases about all of my plots. I've searched this Discord server for key phrases about my plots. Nobody's mentioned one of my plots in this Discord server. It's very sad.
You need to watch my videos then, because I talk about it a hell of a lot.
But, you know, but it shows that we don't necessarily see or hear what's going on. I definitely do find things, and if you ever get like a heart react from someone you're not Facebook friends with, I'm sorry, I was probably like searching a keyword.
That's cool.
But a lot just doesn't reach us.
That sucks. I have to say, that really does suck. There needs to be... I don't know how you feel about this, John, but do you think that there could be something in place to build that connection between the plot team and the field a lot more, instead of relying on what an NPC comes back and tells you, or something that you might get in an email if you're lucky? Do you think there could be more in place to help you, like, do everything, basically?
I think I should say that over the past year, like we've mentioned, Claire has been doing a lot of stuff, making sure that positive feedback that comes through in emails gets shared with the person who wrote that plot, which sometimes means trying to piece together, like, what is this about and who wrote this? I don't really know. We're all kind of trying to play hot potato with it until it gets to the person who it's actually for. For me, at least, I quite like... I do sometimes, you know, I take a look at how people's events have gone. I take an interest in that, but it can feel very vulnerable, like seeing someone's, you know, experience of something that you've done a plot with, especially if like they don't know that I'm going to read that, they don't know who I am, and they shouldn't, you know, people shouldn't be thinking, well, I better write this in a certain way in case the person who wrote this sees it. It's certainly nice if people are like, bearing in mind that we're all, you know, people on the other side of the hedge, coming up with stuff, and always with like, you know, good intentions and good faith. But I'm very kind of, for me at least, social media, I keep it very tight, very locked down. I don't look at much. So I think, yeah, the way things are for me currently, it works pretty well. But I am very, and it's sort of trying to look at like how the department works and how we all feel. I think that feeling of being a little bit cut off from things is present. And trying to kind of give each other that validation and support is something I think we try to do. But in the absolute hecticness of things, often someone's processing how a plot's just gone, and you want to talk to them about it, but you've got to run your own thing. It's a tricky one, that like looking after our well-being. I mean, I think everyone going to a LARP event, it's so easy to get caught up in the excitement of being there and that kind of the loss of adrenaline on a Monday morning, that way it kind of hits you. I think everyone's got a different way of navigating it. It's quite like... Yeah.
So I think that leads on nicely into so the LARP blues, essentially, that Monday morning feeling. Because we talk about it a lot in the Discord. You see it all over... Well, I see it on Twitter, essentially, because I don't go on Facebook, because it's a hole. but I see it again a lot here. There's a lot of support given out on this Discord to people who just say, I want to be back in a field. I miss this. I miss all these nerds. And it's a wonderful thing to see. But it's such a real feeling. How does it affect you? Because obviously you're running around running a game. Essentially, you're running multiple games for people on a large scale. So your downtime, you're not going to get as much downtime as a lot of the players do, because we can just go and sit down by a fire, open a beer and go, yeah, I'm ignoring everyone now. So I'm very vocal about mental health, and saying that on a Saturday I will crash. It's as regular as clockwork. 7 o'clock on a Saturday, I have to walk off. I will just go, because I don't look after myself properly in the field. There's a lot of people don't. But how does it all affect you?
I think we're quite good at looking out for each other. I've definitely had someone like throw an onion bhaji into my hand or something, because like it's obvious that you're flagging. We were quite lucky and we have like a crew welfare spot, and that can be really handy to go and just be like, no one in the monster tent knows that I am here. No one can come and find me. It's definitely different for everyone. But I'm quite lucky in that post-event, I'm full of like creative ideas, because I've just been at Empire. My brain understands Empire, and I can like write down lots of ideas for plots that I can come back to in a few weeks. I actually get my post-LARP blues like a few weeks before, when I'll be like, I'm quitting Empire. It's too much work. I'm so stressed, which John will be very familiar with. And I think it's because like a plot writer's work is offset from the event, like by a few weeks. So the blues cycle is also offset by a few weeks.
Okay. So how do you deal with it all then? So obviously if it happens beforehand, because I get a similar sort of thing doing this, where I'm talking to people 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks before an event, building up the event, and it gets built up so much, and I always have to be on it, that I get to a point, and Helen, my wife, she sits down with me, and I'm just like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. And she's just like, yeah, but you're always saying this, so shut up. Basically, it's like, do the next stream, because you know that you'll be tired, you'll be something like that, but as soon as you get on stream, you perk yourself up, and then you'll be fine. So that's literally it for me. I just keep on doing that. So it's like, at the moment where I've had cancer, so I'm waiting for a third surgery and all of this. So I'm knackered 24/7, and so it's like an hour before this stream, I was just there like, I'm so tired. I don't know if I can do this. And then as soon as I jump into that channel, and then like you both joined, bang, straight back up. I'm really happy. I'm really cheery. I've got all the energies come back, and I'm loving it again. So it's really, really strange, but. So you don't get it. What about yourself, John? Do you find that you get it after the event, or are you before the event? What's your cycle like for it?
I think the thing that unifies both being post Empire and being after events that I've played is that I get, usually on Monday, this like massive self-esteem dip, where it's all the sort of playground thoughts, like people were just saying that nice thing about you, and that you were such an idiot when you did this, and I get it, I can get all the good face-to-face, that was great, you're really good at this feedback at some events, and then the next day or on Monday it's like, nah. I think one thing where we've sort of got as a routine is on Monday night, we meet up with some people who weren't at Empire, and we do a little bit of like, we're going to talk about it because, people take a polite interest, but just having someone like pull you creatively, emotionally, and mentally into a different place and hold you there so that you can like play a tabletop game, play a board game, or just chat about the real world, can be really helpful. Getting that like an ice bath, a social ice bath. I also do a lot of thinking about like, I think this is very particular to plot writers, but I think it can apply to players as well. Thinking about, what do I want to do differently next time? What are the lessons that I'm taking from this event? And where do I have control, and what can I change? I'm always kind of the plots I run often vary between events because I'm kind of overcorrecting, correcting from something that I think was a little bit too something, a little bit too railroaded or a little bit too open. And if you've got like I would say if I was playing Empire, my goal would be to have some kind of enterprise, some sort of thing that I did with people, like I'd do 3-card Monty, or I'd do something, and it's like what went well about that and what didn't, and what can I do differently? And you can spend ages thinking about that, weighing up different possibilities, and just kind of reminding yourself that you have control over your experience and all those places that you have agency in. So a bit of fixating on it and thinking about it, but in a productive way, and a bit of having someone to just like take you somewhere else. We have the advantage that we live together. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday after an event, it's basically all that we talk about. And we just have to hope that we both lose interest at about the same time. Otherwise, it's sort of like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to listen to this, but I'm ready for the next thing. But yeah, we find a rhythm with it. And I think, like you say, like you're doing, just looking out for each other, checking in with each other, saying you were great, because it is true. We're all great. We're doing great stuff.
You are. You are. Never let yourselves be. I mean, I know anxiety is a huge thing. It's a real big, horrible bastard that sits on your shoulder. Believe me, I did an entire stream where I was very open with everybody watching, literally to say, I think you all hate me. I think everyone at Empire hates me. I don't think my friends' family like me, and I'm in a really dark place right now. And yet I'm putting myself on screen to be ridiculed, and it's like a really horrible thing. But I know this is just a little voice in the back of my head being a bastard to me. So I will honestly say, because now you're both on the Discord and you're stuck with us for life now. It's like the marriage you never knew you wanted. I will always say that if you are ever struggling, either of you, feel free, reach out, because we've got a positives vibe channel, and there are some incredible people out there. So, and what you do is essentially you're doing a similar sort of thing that I'm doing here. You're putting yourselves out there for 3,500 players to essentially potentially either love what you're doing, mock what you're doing, hate what you're doing. You don't know. You are opening yourselves up to this. So you need that sort of protection. You need that love as well. And I can understand it. And I think that what you both do is fantastic. I said it to the NPC people. I've said it to everybody. I've said it to Matt when I've had him on stream as well. I said it to Claire. Everyone behind the scenes at PD does a phenomenal job, and you're not paid. You may get an event for free, food, and that. You're all volunteers, and you're doing it because you love to do it. So I think that needs to be recognised as well. So I'll stop being nice now because I don't do it that often on stream. But I mean, I've got a lot of time and respect for what you both do. I really, really do. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. I've been nice about NPC lot, and they're not here either. So it's so I've got a lot of time.
And just to be, very English, very British, and flip that back. It's a cliche, but the game is nothing if people don't show up and play it, and it's much better off when people pick things up and run with them and share them around and just make their own thing out of it. That to me is a huge part of the joy of running plot, especially at a game as big as Empire, is that you give a skeleton and the players flesh it out and turn it into something beautiful. And you might never even see that, but knowing that that's happening and just hearing those little fragments of stories, that's what it's all about.
Perhaps it would be good for to do like a big bulk email or something where a lot of people just put in notes about specific plot. So you just get one massive email come through. See if I can arrange that or something at some point after each event for you, just so you get literally battered with all this feedback in one foul swoop. Because I think feedback goes a long way, and it's something that I always discovered when I was working in retail, is that everyone forgets compliments immediately, but everyone remembers bad news forever, or bad customer service forever. So it's a similar thing here. So you want to hear both, because that's the only way that people learn, and it's the only way things will change. So yeah, I think people need to do, was it a shit sandwich? This is what was great. This was bad, but this was great. I think that would be good. And the military units, I think. But yeah, I think that this has been quite eye opening of a lot of stuff, because I think one of the things it shows is PD doesn't have enough people. I think you could do with more. I mean, okay, I'll say this is my opinion. This is my opinion from it. If you are able to put out, say, you've got 10 plot writers, some only put one piece in, some give 2, some give 5, maybe more, stuff like that. So you're probably looking at around 30 pieces of plot an event that goes out into the field. At a guesstimate, 3,500. So that's one piece of plot for like every 100 people. It's like clamoring all over it. I think you could do with a bit more love, a bit more support. Bastard players do more. Basically.
It's one of those things, like logistically, like I've had talks with other heads of department where they say, I'd love it if next event 20 people showed up to do this, but also, oh, whoa, that would be really stressful because we don't have the space and resource. Like it's that gradual growth that I think we're aiming for. But
yeah,
I mean, definitely, as you said, if someone's interested in crewing and they've just got some questions and they want to get a feel for it, putting in an email, there's always room to grow with quite a few departments. And I do really want to be clear, like there's the plot writers running encounters, and I would struggle to put an estimate on how many it is, but it's some that run every event. But there's so many other aspects. That's one of the Plotopus's limbs. Tentacles? What are they? I don't know. Things, stretching the metaphor.
Who knows?
There's still, there's a huge amount going on. I can't understate like the hours that the game team put in to crank out like Winds of Fortune. Some of that stuff is done by plot writers, but the bulk of it is by PD. Like just furiously typing and putting things out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think with Empire we're spoiled, aren't we? With everything that we've got, you compare it to a lot of other places. The wiki is phenomenal. The crew are phenomenal. The site's great. And that, so we're very, very lucky with what we've got. So it would be, I think it would be really lovely to see. Yeah, I think I said to Beth, if we got E1, every department had another 2 people volunteer, that'd be great, because we'll feel it more in the field. It's I know a lot of people who have said that they wanted to do NPC or do something like that for a year, and then play for a year, and then come back to it for a year, and stuff like that. But it never happens. It never happens. It's like, oh yeah, I want to NPC. It's like, okay, you're gonna go and do it. I'll do it when my character dies. Yeah, your character. Do you ever take the field? No. Right. Okay. So you're never gonna die. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff there, I think. But it would be good. I think it's why, with what I said beforehand, what I want to do. I've played for so long now. It's like, I want to go off and do something else. I'm going to enjoy it, and it helps and stuff like that. So I'm just noticing the time at the moment as well, because I only tend to go for like an hour to an hour and a half, and this has been very interesting. So we've been going for longer. So we're gonna go to one last question. I've got a question here from Ryan. So how far ahead do you write individual plot threads? Is it more reactive, or are things plotted out? Nice pun. Well done, Ryan.
Personally, never more than an event in advance. At its worst, like an hour before, but don't do that. Don't do that. I did that once. Don't. But usually I'll have like a vague concept and like this is exactly what's happening this event. I know that. And then after that event, we'll work out exactly what happens next event. Because like you never know what players are going to do in the best possible way. So there's no point trying to plan for something in like 3-4 events time. Who knows what the plot will look like then?
Okay, Jon?
Yeah, I basically agree.
Okay.
Generally, it's quite hard to find. Like, I can't pull the link right now, but there is some. It's on the Crew wiki, but that's a publicly available Empire wiki. But it's separate to the Empire wiki. There is some. You can read some of the guidance that plot writers have. It's very general. It's very multi-purpose. But I'm pretty sure one of them is that if you're pitching a year-long plot, so when we pitch plots, we go through an approval process with the game team and we pin a lot of it down with them, and it's a collaboration. It's not just us going wild and just throwing things out there. But generally, we're really encouraged, just because of capacity, pitch a plot for the event, and then after the event, decide whether you want to do more with it. And you might do that over and over and over and over again and have a plot that goes on for ages, but you're never setting out to say, this is going to be going like this is going to be doing this in a year or in 2 years' time, because there's just not time to talk about that. And there's so many beautiful surprises that can happen on the way. So take it one event at a time, definitely.
Yeah, because I used to I play a lot of Vampire the Masquerade. I do a lot of Vampire LARPs. My old ST from that, he always used to say that if he was struggling with an idea, he didn't know what to run that evening, he used to walk in with a tin of beans, put it on a table, because it would confuse every single player in there. The experienced players would be, well, I'll sit back and I'll watch and see what happens. The new players would be, I need to use every single discipline I can on it. When at the end of the day, it's just a tin of beans. But players will make something from it. So I suppose you have that as well. It's a lovely little thing that I always do. So actually, I'm going to finish with this question because this is a really good question. I think this will be a good one for you both to answer. Is there anything you wish players would stop doing to make your job easier? That's a great one.
This is just me being bad at NPCing my own plots. This is why I said don't NPC. Like, I think NPCing your own plots is bad. If I am NPCing my own plot, and only if I am NPCing my own plot, please stop asking me for Call Winged Messenger addresses. Because on the fly, I'll be like, yeah, I can create a Call Winged Messenger address for this NPC. That's fine. And I shouldn't do that unless I plan to do that in advance. Like, that's a really bad idea. But here we are. It's not bitten me, and like it's not come back to haunt me yet. But that is I probably shouldn't be admitting that. That is my bad habit. But on the whole, I really like it when players do really unexpected things. So I don't think there is anything in particular that I would like players to stop do, apart from call me out for my bad NPCing of my own plots.
Yeah, I have to quickly reread the question because. I'm sorry, chat. I don't know why there is suddenly so many ads. I haven't got a clue what's happened. I'll have to check my settings and find out what's gone on. It's not like I get any money from them, so I don't know what's happened. So I will have a look for you. So Pete's question was: is there anything you wish players would stop doing to make your job easier? So I hope you all heard that now, the second time. So how about yourself, Jon?
For me at least, I definitely don't want anyone to be engaging in the plot thinking like, oh, I don't want to put a foot wrong here. I don't want to do like I love the question, but in principle, do what feels right for the character and for the game and for your experience with the plot. If there is one thing, it's probably like. If you think that there is a right way to engage and you're looking for that before you do anything, it's probably that you're grasping at shadows. Like where we're not trying to run stuff that's got a particular endpoint. Obviously, if a skirmish says, here's your objective, maybe try to achieve that. You'll have more fun that way. But equally, we're trying to run things where doing nothing could be interesting, where they aren't prescribed choices. And if there are, it'll be really, really clear. But if you're given a button and you don't know if you should press it, don't feel like you have to press it or that you don't have to press it. As a player, personally, press the button. We love pressing buttons. It doesn't matter what the button does. But yeah, like don't feel like you have to do something or that you have to wait to make the perfect decision, unless that thinking is going to be really fun for you and the people around you.
Okay, that's quite interesting. But yeah, we do love pressing buttons. Definitely love pushing a good button. So yeah, I think we'll call it there. If you two hang around in the Discord afterwards, because otherwise it messes everything up, like I did at the beginning with my own stuff. I did really, really well. Am I raiding? I was planning on raiding someone. The Irish Island. They had some really bad news yesterday. Of course. So, Erin, Jon, thank you so much for coming on. I'm not going to apologise for the fact that we were absolutely inundated with questions, because questions are good. Have we discovered what plot team do? Not so much. Have we answered all the questions in the world? Yeah. So, it's been great.
Hefty thumbs.
It's been lovely. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think for, as Bolan would say, potentially a second stream at some point, because a lot of people watching and we've had a lot of questions come through. Sorry, I just got a little creator head thinking on. Could do like a little YouTube video or something just so you can explain what the plot team actually do. And we could just do a little thing so people can actually know what you do.
That does rely on us knowing what we're doing to be able to explain it.
Well, the good thing with that is that I can just send you both some questions, and you can prepare your answers and suggest anything that you need to put out there. We've got that little Discord chat thing going, so we'll mention it to Claire as well, because that could potentially be quite a good idea. And then you can just record it all yourselves and send it to me. So we could do that. Right, who am I raiding? I've forgotten. The Irish Island, was it? Let's see what is going on there. This will take a second. The Irish Island. Right, let's go. What the hell is he wearing? That looks weird, but still. Right, yeah, go and give him some love if he's had bad news. Go and give him some love, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the bits, Jazz. It's all going towards me buying a new computer chair that doesn't have a wheel that's not there anymore. So, thank you, everyone. But, yeah, go raid. Go spread the love. Take care.